Today, I would like to talk about a Irish academic and a novelist by the name of Dr. Kevin Power. He has a PhD just recently, like from 2013. It's a recent PhD. He's a young man, and it's a PhD on American literature. So he's a published author. I think, somebody important enough for the independent newspaper to run an article that he has written just, a couple of days ago. I want to look at this article because, as a black man myself, I'm a bit worried that white academics, that they are trying to cash in on the general desire in all countries that people should not be discriminated and that police resources should not be misused to kill and to, it's very expensive when you incarcerate people for no good reason. And that could be a color issue because it's very difficult to change the color of your skin. So really decent people all over, they don't want this nonsense. But what happens when academics, people with PhD, who are teaching English and at the college level, what happens when they write something in the newspapers? Are they responsible in what they write? This is the question I want to ask you. Now, Dr. Kevin Power, he makes clear that he is against Donald Trump. He says, watching Donald Trump threaten to deploy the military to quash the Black Lives Matter protests and seeing viral videos of armored and unsmiling troops guarding the streets of Washington, D.C., it's difficult not to be reminded of some warnings. What sort of warnings? Warnings that a fascism could overtake America. So, that seems quite reasonable. There are plenty of professors like Yale professor of philosophy, Jason Stanley, for a long time now, he's been saying that, fascism, Donald Trump, and this is propaganda, and this is fascism, and so forth. And there are many others. But, I would ask Dr. Kevin Power and other academics to please read the books that you quote. If you quote Sinclair Lewis, fine. Sinclair Lewis was an anti-fascist. And, so that part of it is fine. Kevin Power, he mentions Sinclair Lewis's novel, It Can't Happen Here. That's fine. That's cool. Lewis was Upton Sinclair Lewis. These guys were anti-fascist. But a little bit later, and this is the PhD part of him coming to the fore, he suddenly starts babbling nonsense about D.H. Lawrence, who had some bizarre views because he was as mad as a hatter. He was married to some crazy German lady, and, he had God knows how many psychological complexes, and he's mad. So he suddenly he says, D.H. Lawrence's studies in classic American literature, 1924, is an overlooked but still highly pertinent volume. So he's saying that this guy who wrote a book 100 years ago, he was crazy, he's a racist, he hated black people. Well, maybe he didn't hate them, but he just said that, each race is separate, they should be separate from each other. He believed in, but he was a nasty, twisted, crazy, misogynistic madman. Great literary talent, but this particular book, Studies in Classical American Literature, is rubbish. You can, it reeks of madness. And, and this Dr. Kevin Parr, he says, oh, but this professor and that professor, and Susan Sontag and Harold Bloom, and, they've praised this book. Yeah, but they were all shit. They were all rubbish. And, so let me quote Dr. Kevin Parr. He writes, American democracy, Lawrence said, is best understood as the means by which the new world shook off the old. Is this true? No. What Lawrence actually wrote was, liberty is all very well, but men cannot live without masters. There's always a master, and men either live in glad obedience to the master they believe in, or they live in frictional opposition to the master they wish to undermine. In America, this frictional opposition has been the vital factor. It has given the Yankee his kick. Only the continual influx of more servile Europeans has provided America with an obedient laboring class. The true obedience never outlasting the first generation. So, in other words, Lawrence really speaks of America, in terms which are a little bit different from Emerson. Emerson had spoken of the Swede and the German and the Irish coming to America hoping to breathe free, but saying, look, they're going to die laboring in some obscure place, and they'll rot in a ditch, and maybe a small part of the prairie will be a little bit greener, there may be some flowers to mark their graves, but that is, they are drudges. Emerson was wrong. The Germans, and Germans are actually the largest ethnic group in America, and Donald Trump, of course, is of that. But they're good people, and there's you really can't say anything nasty about anybody anywhere on the basis of who their daddy or their granddaddy or their, no, things don't work that way. Anyway, it's very, very sad. It's very sad that you have a guy who has a PhD in American literature, and he keeps quoting D.H. Lawrence. D.H. Lawrence, and it's basically saying D.H. Lawrence had something important to say about American democracy. But the truth is, the important thing that D.H. Lawrence had to say was that any mingling of the races is wrong, any refusal to accept the mastery, the Führerprinzip, as it would come to be known, that is wrong. And that, America was quite hysterical in saying, oh, we want to be free. You can't be free. You must have a master. So it's very sad, that a person who teaches English and who has a PhD in American literature, it's very sad that he writes in the independent newspaper in such a false, in such a misleading manner. And I say this particularly because, he's publishing a book called White City. And if I were not charitably inclined, I would say Kevin should be known as Whitey, because he's written, his new novels called White City, and I'd say that White Power, Kevin White Power. This White Power guy is quoting D.H. Lawrence, who says about the Negro. Let us hear. Dr. Kevin Parr says that this is this wonderful book which you must read. It's very pertinent. But what does D.H. Lawrence say in that book? He says, there are these people, these savages. One does not despise them. One does not feel superior. But there is a gulf. There is a gulf in time and being. I can't mingle my being with theirs. What does he have to say about black people? And this is what it's about. Black Lives Matter. Let us see. There is an invisible hand grasps my heart and prevents it opening too much to these strangers. They are beautiful, they are like children, they are generous, but they are more than this. They are far off, and in their eyes is an easy darkness of the soft, uncreate past. In a way, they are uncreate. What does that mean? They are not creatures, they are not human. If you are uncreate, you are not a creature, God did not create you, you don't matter. And far be it from, this is Lawrence, far be it from me to assume any white superiority, puts white in inverted commas. But they are savages! Far be it from me to assume any white superiority, but non-whites are savages. Thank you for not assuming white superiority. Anyway, they are gentle and laughing and physically very handsome. But it seems to me that living so far, though through all our bitter centuries of civilization, we have still been living onwards, forwards. God knows it looks like a cul-de-sac now, but turn to the first Negro and then listen to your own soul. And your own soul will tell you that however false and foul our forms and systems are now, still through the many centuries since Egypt, we have been living and struggling forward along some road that is no road and yet is a great life development. We have struggled on in us that on we must still go. We may have to smash things, then let us smash. And our road may have to take a great swerve that seems a retrogression. So, basically, the first Negro is the ancestral Eve from whom we're all descended. And, this is worthless shite. This is racist, it's stupid, and the fact is D.H Lawrence was mad. He's not a nice guy, at least when he started ranting and raving. And that was 100 years ago. He wrote some good books. Let us leave it at that. We don't need to, go into libraries and say, well, this is a racist man, we've got to burn all his books. And we've got to burn all the PhD dissertations about him. We have to get rid of Leavis, who for some reason, liked D.H Lawrence. We don't have to get rid of all these, well, though maybe we should. Maybe we should just stop issuing degrees and MAs and PhDs in literature. Read, it's a hobby. I don't think it can be a scholarly profession. It's very sad about Kevin Parr. He literally, it's as though his brain power decreased greatly simply because of his choice of subject. He did a PhD in something which made him stupider than he needed to be. And of course, if he is genuine, if he published this thing in the Independent because he cared about Black Lives Matter and he thought that Donald Trump is a bad guy, for God's sake, don't say that D.H Lawrence is important. Because a lot of people, they won't know, they won't look up. But if they do look up D.H Lawrence, they're going to find this racist bile. So, if you want to be the good guy, don't be linking to Goebbels type hate speech. And it's very sad that Dr. Kevin Whitey, his latest book is called White City, so I'm going to call him Kevin White Power. Seriously, dude, learn to read and don't and stop writing such worthless shite. You're Irish. You're supposed to have a good sense of humour and, to be able to speak in epigrams and, that kind of thing. Anyway, what a worthless shit you've turned into because of your PhD. Save others from that fate.